Hey everybody, Papa Wiggs here with Wiggs. We're going to do our Week 7 recap here of the Sunday's games. We'll start off with the game that was in London, Patriots versus the Jags. Listen, Wiggs, I know you love them because you've been trying to get them off me, but boy, they got a franchise receiver there in Brian Thomas Jr., don't they? I mean, he looked really good in that game, a lot better than I expected. And even though the Patriots got beat 32-16, I think the Patriots found their quarterback. I think Drake May is going to get better and better as each week goes by. I think they're making a right decision and playing him now. They just need to, get some linemen on him and keep their running backs healthy. And I think he's going to be a good quarterback in the league. I really do myself. So um, no surprise here, though. I didn't really expect the Patriots to win. Did you, Wiggs? It was not a bad game. The Jaguars got a win, and hopefully they'll build up that momentum, and we'll see how they do going forward.
Yeah, I expected the Jaguars to win. I didn't expect them to win by that much, though, to be honest. Like I told you yesterday, with us getting up early, I watched probably the first quarter, and it was like 10-0, and then I literally just took a nap, and I woke up, and it was 32-10. I'm like, what just happened? What did I miss? And yeah,
Yeah, and he's taken over. Kirk is kind of taking a back seat to both him and Ingram now. So I suspect that Brian Thomas is going to continue to have a good year going forward, and I think he's definitely um, one of the top rookie receivers. I can't really put him over Neighbors yet, but I think him and Neighbors right now are the top two rookie receivers. Would you disagree?
no, I completely agree with that. And Thomas right now has more points than Neighbors, actually, but that's just because Neighbors was out for 2 weeks. So
Right. So that leads us into the next game, Lions versus Vikings. As much as it hurt me, folks, I picked the Lions to win. Uh, I'm telling you, you know our defense didn't look great. Jared Goff looked really good. We couldn't stop the run to save our lives. Our offense kind of stumbled. Jefferson wasn't a huge factor in the game. Jamar Gibbs had a total of 160 yards and two touchdowns. Crazy. We couldn't get pressure. We got some pressure on Golf, but their offensive coordinator Wiggs had a really good game plan. I thought Golf was getting the ball out quick, and boy, he was really composed in the pocket. That guy. There was one play where Grenard almost got a strip sack. He stepped up, he threw it downfield, and made a big reception. The Lions looked really good. Man, they're the real deal, even without Hutchinson. And now they're number one in the NFC North. I think the Vikings are, they got to figure some things out here. They definitely got to clean up some stuff. Too many penalties from them in this game. And it was just, it's what I thought. I kind of thought the Vikings were going to lose this one because I knew they were going to lose sometime, and I figured it was going to be against the Lions.
yeah, I had a feeling they were too. I just went with the numbers and predicted the Vikings, but this is definitely a game I could see us losing day in and day out. I mean, Goff's been unbelievable the last 3 weeks. I know you dropped him in our league, which, yeah, he's been going off these last few weeks, but um, I kind of expected it. I didn't expect Gibbs to go off like that yesterday. I thought our run defense would have been a little bit better, but it is what it is. I still think right now, even with the Vikings losing, you can still consider them a top five team, but I wouldn't doubt it if they play down the teams that they have coming up and maybe lose a game or two there, but um, right now, the Lions, I think, are probably the best team in the league. I'd probably put like Kansas City behind them, and then probably still put the Vikings somewhere in that mix as well. But yeah, not the result I wanted. I thought for a second there, if the Vikings got the 2 point conversion and held on defense, or didn't just go three and out on the last drive, that my 31-28 prediction was almost spot on there yesterday.
Yeah, no, you hit it pretty well there. So yeah, it's crazy um, crazy game, and then that leads us into the Titans and the Bills. Listen, I'm gonna make a prediction right now. Um, I know the Chiefs are undefeated, but I gotta give the Bills. The Bills are playing like the top team in the AFC right now. I mean, I think that between them and the Ravens, I think one of those two teams are going to knock off the Chiefs this year. You know, in the playoffs. That's just my prediction. I think that they're just playing really solid. Josh Allen hasn't lost a beat. Crazy because he tore up a really good Tennessee um, defense. On the flip side, Tennessee's a mess. Levy's was out. Mason Rudolph didn't do anything. They struggled. They couldn't get anything going. And, it was nice to see Keenan Coleman Wiggs get 125 yards yesterday. I think that's a really good pair they got now in Coleman and Cooper, don't you think?
Yeah, I think Cooper ends up getting Coleman open. Like a lot of his yardage came on two plays of like 55 yards and like 40 yards. But like if Cooper's getting you open and you're gonna get one big play out of Coleman each week, he might be reliable at some point if he has a touchdown on in a game.
Well, and I think you hit it on the head, Wiggs. I think that with Cooper in there, that they're gonna have opportunities to hit that long
Yeah.
ball, and Josh Allen loves to sling the ball deep. So I think this is really gonna help him. James Cook is still looking really good. This Buffalo team is tough right now. The Jets and the Dolphins are going to struggle to catch them. In this division. But yeah. So and you know what, the Titans. I think their ships sinking here. Wigs. I don't get it. I think you and I talked about this before. Their offense should be a lot better than they are. They're just not playing really good. If they could figure out their offense, they could actually be a really good team this year. That leads us into the next game, the Dolphins versus the Colts. The Colts got the big win here. Listen, Mike McDaniels is got. They're gonna get Tua back next week probably, but what a disappointing way the last couple weeks here. You target your top two receivers 4 times in this entire game. Really? 4 times? You're telling me that your two backup quarterbacks, because the one that was in Huntley got hurt, and then the other guy came in. You're telling me that these guys can't throw the ball and get it into a playmaker's hands? Uh, I mean, he should be embarrassed by the way he called these games with Tua out. I mean, they might have just sunk themselves to even have a chance at going to the playoffs. They're certainly way far behind the Bills. Really disappointing to see that. I just can't say too much more about that. On the flip side, the Colts did what they had to do to win. They pulled out a big win, which was great for them. But I think Pittman had a better game this time around with Richardson. But I don't know. This was the Dolphins' game to lose, and they did.
Yeah, I don't have much to say about this game. It was really just I think a poor performance on both sides, and it just went down to who made one play at the end of the day, which was a touchdown on the Colts side. So
Yeah. So the next game we got the Seahawks at the Falcons. Wow, I thought this game was going to be a lot closer. Uh, I'd love to say the Falcons. The, I don't know what the deal is with them right now. I can't sit here and criticize them for not using Bijan because Bijan had a total of 143 yards and a touchdown. Drake London was involved in this game as well. Kyle Pitts was. I think the biggest disappointment for me is that I really think that I don't know why they're getting away from Mooney, but they need to get him more involved in this. When they were spreading the ball out earlier in the season, they were having a lot more success. I don't know if their defense is struggling because they got some injuries or what, but the Seahawks just dominated this game, 34-14. DK Metcalf got hurt. It's just supposed to be a minor knee injury, so it doesn't sound like he's going to miss too much time, if any at all. But the Seahawks, they just keep winning. They just keep winning. and Kenneth Walker had 93 total yards and 2 touchdowns. Geno's been looking good. Their defense is playing good, so they're on all cylinders, Wiggs. So I think the Seahawks are going to be tough the rest of the year.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly from some of the Falcons drives, they just couldn't finish stuff out towards the end of the game. So, and I think like a fumble or a pick six came in at some point too, or something like that. But I think it might have been by the time they had Penix in the game. But yeah, the Falcons just are like an up and down team for me right now. Like they play really good one week and then they just play complete crap the next. So I don't know what their staff is doing in their play calling. I don't necessarily think it's coming down to the players. I think it's just poor offensive play calling.
Yeah, I don't know what it is either. I should have just stuck with my gut yesterday when
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
I mean, I did have the Seahawks. I flipped it. I should have stuck with my gut. Oh well. Next game, Texans versus Packers. This was another good game. You know what? This played out exactly like I thought it was going to play out. I thought the Texans were going to struggle against the Packers defense. Diggs got into a big scrum at the beginning of the game because there's no love lost between him and Jair Alexander. He did not have very good things to say about him after either. But props to the Packers. They held Diggs in check. I mean, he didn't have a game. The Packers did what they needed to do here. They got the big win at the end with the field goal kick on a kicker they just signed, McManus. So it was a huge win for them. They're staying pace with the Vikings and the Lions. They're only one game behind in the NFC North again, which to me is the best division in the league right now. So Jordan Love is starting to fire, using all of his weapons. Kraft had a touchdown. Their defense is playing really solid. They're going to be tough, Wiggs. They played a tough Texans team and they held them in check.
Yeah, and I thought this was probably one of the better games of the week. I know there's actually a decent amount of turnovers in that game. I know Jordan Love threw at least two picks. I think there was a fumble on the side of the Texans as well. So it really just came down to I think the Packers getting a little lucky at the end that the Texans couldn't finish a drive or extend it to run out of time. But I mean, props to them. They took out I think still a tough Texans team, even without Nico Collins in there. But
They are.
yeah,
They Mixon had 124 yards and 2 touchdowns.
yep.
So he had a good game. I mean, I'm not too worried about the Texans right now. I think they're going to bounce back. They're playing a tough schedule this year because they play all the NFC North teams. So,
Literally.
yeah, so because they played the Vikings, they played the Packers, so they got a tough schedule. So that leads us into our next game, the Bengals versus the Browns. Hey, the one thing I want to say here, whether you like the guy, you don't like the guy, for the Browns fans to sit there and boo him and do the stuff that they did when Deshaun Watson went down was kind of a classless act on their part. I get it. He wasn't playing well. He's not what they expected. But you should never, boo somebody or kick them when they're down. The guy, tore his Achilles. He's out for the season. Whether you like him, don't like him, whatever, nobody deserves, to be treated like that. That's just not how you should be treated. With that said, I thought the Browns actually held the Bengals in check, Wiggs. I was a little surprised. Their defense actually played really well. I mean, Chase still had, a touchdown and stuff, but they held the Bengals in check and they kept it close. The Thompson came in to relieve Watson, was doing okay, and then Winston had to come in as the emergency quarterback. So to be able to only lose by 7 points and you're on your emergency quarterback, I got to give the Browns props on this one because at least they're not quitting out there, and they held a really good Bengals team in check.
And you lost Amari Cooper to another team this week, so
Right.
and I feel like two of their receivers stepped up yesterday that were behind Jerry Judy. Um, Cedric was one of them, and
Cedric Wilson.
yeah, and then one other one I believe. So Elijah Moore, I'm pretty sure. So they stepped up a little bit in that game, and it'll be an interesting team. I still don't think they're gonna make playoffs now at this point. I thought going into the season they might, but yeah.
It's going to
And
be tough for the Browns. They'd really have to start stringing
yeah,
together a bunch of wins right now to even
yeah,
get back into the talk of playoffs.
yeah. And one thing I like about the Bengals from yesterday is they ran Chase Brown 15 times in that game. He kind of took over a little bit over like Zach Moss there, so He just
Yeah.
didn't have a whole lot of success because the Browns defense was actually playing defense.
Well,
Really.
they were playing the way they usually
Yeah.
play. I mean, they got good guys on that defense. That leads us into the Eagles and the Giants. I'm a little bit surprised here. I picked the Giants. You know what? I totally spaced out on this pick. I told Wiggs this last night. I totally forgot. Saquon coming back to the Giants, the whole big storyline. I mean, Saquon tore it up yesterday, 187 total yards and a touchdown. The Giants were never in this. Um, Listen, I think Daniel Jones' number may be coming up here really fast. It wouldn't surprise me if the Giants are trying to work together a deal for a quarterback. I know Malik Neighbors wasn't very happy after. I know he was telling the press that look at the video, look at the tape that he was open. He just wasn't getting hit. They did end up pulling Danny Dimes out for their backup, who didn't do much at all. The Eagles just dominated this game from start to finish. Hurts looked good. Brown looked good. Barkley looked good. The Giants looked bad. I don't know. Not much else to say about that, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's really anything we need to say. Barkley really carried this team. He had over like 180 yards and a touchdown, and then AJ Brown just doing Brown like things. So
yeah. And then the next game, Raiders versus the Rams. This one didn't surprise me. I thought the Rams were going to pull off the win. I thought it would have been, not as close. So I'll give the Raiders props, especially since Aiden O'Donnell got hurt, broke his thumb. They had to bring in Minchner. The good thing is that Minchner, had been starting before, so that helped out the Raiders. Kai Ren had a total of 76 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's a touchdown machine right now. So the Rams are really, heavily depending on him right, at this moment in the season. It'll be interesting to see how they play against the Vikings. I'm curious how that Thursday night game is going to be in LA. They're supposed to be getting Cup back for that game, so it should be interesting, how that pans out. The Raiders are a mess. I don't know. I think I kind of feel like they're giving up on Zamir White.
oh, they definitely did, especially with, and I think they're going to continue to do so because Madison had over 120 yards yesterday in their game. So
Listen, great for Madison. I'm not a huge, he used to play for the Vikings. I just don't think you're going to get consistency out of him. That's just my opinion. Maybe he'll prove me wrong, but yeah, I think they're losing faith in White. I don't necessarily think it's White's fault, but I still think White's gonna, be a beast. Who knows? Maybe he gets traded, Wiggs. If they don't really like him. The trade deadline's coming up here in a couple weeks, so. But I think the Raiders are fading out. They're definitely not. I had them competing with the Chiefs for the division this year, and that's obviously not the case. So, next game, Panthers versus the Commanders. What can you say? The Commanders. I should, from an NFC perspective, they're one of the teams to talk about right now.
they're the number 2 team.
And unfortunately, Jaden Daniels got a rib injury, had to come out. They're saying he's week to week right now. Hopefully it won't be week to week. Hopefully Dan Quinn, the coach, said they're going to watch him at practice and see. Obviously, these are franchise quarterbacks, so they're not going to take any risks with him. But he is a big part of that offense, so they need to get him back. It was against the Panthers, so I mean, you would expect that they would beat the Panthers. I didn't expect they were going to beat them like this. I mean, they crushed them. The Panthers, another team that's a mess right now. They need to figure something out. Their defense is not playing well. Their offense is just as bad. So I don't know, Wiggs. Not much else to say about that game.
That game was pretty self-explanatory.
Chiefs versus the 49ers. I really thought the 49ers were going to pull this one out. They lost Ayuk. He's out for the season.
Debo's in the hospital right now with pneumonia.
Oh, is he? Debo, yeah, Debo had an illness and stuff. He was out. They lost, a couple defensive guys in this game. Trent Williams got booted out at the end there for taking a swing. Obviously the guy swung at him first, and he didn't get a penalty or anything. Surprise, surprise. Listen, the Chiefs, they're 6-0. They're undefeated. Great. They're just not the best team in the league. I'm sorry. I get it. Everybody's going to say Papa Wigs until someone beats them. They're the best team. I don't think they are. I think I think that they're getting lucky right now, getting some lucky breaks. I think it's going to be a whole different story once it gets in the playoffs. That's just my opinion. Well, maybe they prove me wrong. Patrick Mahomes did not look good in this game uh, at all. But their defense is carrying them right now, I feel.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised the 49ers offense really couldn't get anything going yesterday because I'm not sold that the Chiefs defense is as good as they looked last night. And I know like the 49ers took a big hit to Ayuk yesterday, but I mean at some point you got to start incorporating like Jordan Mason into your pass game or someone else. I mean, you might be without Debo for a week or two here depending on his illness. So,
Plus Jennings was out too. They didn't
yeah,
have They lost Debo. They lost Ayuk. Jennings was out. I
they're
mean,
on
they
their
were
4, 5, 6 guys the
yeah,
entire game.
and
But even some of those guys, I mean, you got Purcell that just came off of getting shot, but he looked actually decent in that game yesterday. Not a
yeah.
lot of yards, but had a few receptions. I mean,
Purdy just didn't look
yeah,
good, and
he
he
just
got
didn't,
lectured by the coach, from my understanding. 5 minutes in his locker by Shanahan. He was lecturing him.
and he didn't have anything to say back. Like,
Yeah, and he just kind of took it in because he probably knew he was right.
yeah,
Because Purdy did not look good.
no, I think he threw like 2 or 3 picks too. It was a bad game for him.
Yeah. And then that leads us into the Sunday night game, Jets versus the Steelers. Hey, I'll be the first to admit when I was wrong. I didn't agree with Tomlin switching quarterbacks. I'm still not a huge fan of Russell Wilson. I still don't think he's going to lead them to the promised land. But I will say Russell Wilson did one thing that Justin Fields wasn't doing, and I don't know if that's because they're more comfortable with Wilson than Fields, but they were letting Fields launch the ball down the fields to Pickens. Pickens, he's one of the best contested catch passers in the league. I think had over 111 yards and a touchdown uh, yesterday. So they look good. The Jets defense looked horrendous. Hopefully, with the signing of Hassan Reddick and him coming in, that's going to help them. Their offense didn't look much better. Uh, I'd love to say it was because of the Steelers' defense, but I'll be quite honest with you. I'm starting to, Brees Hall had a good game. He had 141 total yards and a touchdown. But I'm just not sold on Aaron Rodgers right now, Wiggs. I just don't. Rodgers can point the finger and say his receivers are doing this and that. But I was watching the whole game last night, and I just feel like Rodgers is just not. He's missing his receivers just as much as his receivers aren't helping.
I mean, he's missing them like a few times throughout the game, but his receivers are even dropping some of the most simple catches right now. I mean, right off the rip, Devontae Adams with like a routine catch dropped it right on that first drive. Like, I don't think they're doing them any favors, but Rodgers isn't doing much else on top of that. But their defense, I really think, lost them the game yesterday because their defense just looked terrible.
Yeah, their defense looked really bad. Now, I mean, like I said, Reddick is going to be a huge addition, uh, and they're supposed to be getting some other guys back here soon as well. So maybe they can turn the ship around. I don't. I think out of all the two, I think they're 2-5 now. I think out of all the 2-5 teams, I think the Jets are the ones that I could see turning it around the quickest. With the people that they got coming back, so it'll be interesting. Now the Steelers are 5-2. Uh, we'll see. We'll see how Russell Wilson is. I'm not convinced, but we'll see. So that's it. That's the recap for yesterday. There's two games tonight: the Ravens versus the Bucks and the Chargers versus the Cardinals. Should be an interesting Monday night duo of games. Um, but with that, Wiggs, you got anything to add? All right, Fantasy Fools PPR on YouTube. Check us out on Snapchat, X, TikTok, Instagram. Like, share, subscribe. If you got any questions, comments, feel free to reach out to us. And we appreciate you guys all viewing. And until next time, we'll see you soon.